Now, as I segue into talking about the Ministry of Compassion Australia, I want to tell you a sheep story. My husband and I were kayaking on a river one day, and we'd packed a picnic lunch. We'd been kayaking for a while, so we pulled over. I don't know if you pull over in a kayak, but we had settled on the grassy bank and we'd had a picnic lunch on the riverbed. And when we'd finished lunch, I had a book, because I never go anywhere without a book, and I was sitting and reading, and Lindsay, who's the more adventurous of the two of us, got back in his kayak and went further up the river. But then after a while, I heard this incredible noise, and I looked up, and on the riverbank on the other side, in the paddock, there was this herd of sheep tearing across the paddock. And Lindsay was starting to come back in his kayak, and as I was looking, I noticed that in the river there was one sheep who had got himself in the river and was desperately trying to save itself. It was going round and round in circles, and who knows that sheep are not made for swimming. So starts Emergency Rescue 101 of Kate and Lindsay trying to rescue this sheep. So I got into my kayak, and we were kayaked over to the other side of the river, and we were trying to shepherd this sheep by getting our kayaks at an angle to each other and trying to force it towards the riverbank. Well, this posed a problem, because as soon as the sheep recognised that there was something that it could maybe grab onto, it started to try to get up on top of the kayak. So not only did my husband, Lindsay, have a panicking sheep to worry about, he now had a panicking wife. Because to me, kayaks are for staying in and not for coming out of. But this sheep was desperately trying to get onto the kayak. So to cut a long story short, Lindsay and I actually did manage to shepherd this sheep to the riverbank. And then Lindsay got out, and he, through Herculean effort, managed to get this very heavy wet sheep up the riverbank and back with the rest of the flock. Now, as we were kayaking back down the river, I started thinking about the parable of the lost sheep and about how important to God is just one sheep. And as I pondered this parable as we were kayaking back, I believe I felt a prompting of God by His Holy Spirit saying to me, "And I have called you for the one." Now, I've never forgotten that. It's vivid in my memory. And my heart has always been for the poor and the oppressed and the suffering. But often when I thought of the poor and the oppressed, I was confronted with the enormity of global poverty. And this can result in a paralysis into inaction at times when you're overwhelmed with things. And now, years ago, I was doing some research, and I was reading the passage in Ezekiel chapter 34, and I started weeping for the abandoned and for the oppressed. And it reminded me of the sheep in the river incident and how I believe God has called me to fight for the lost, for the abandoned, and for the stray sheep, the ones who need someone to fight for them. Now, on that river that day, I'd already been praying for a greater opportunity to be more effective in serving the poor. I'd been beseeching God to open a door. I wanted to work for a Christian organisation which reflected God's shepherd's heart for the poor and the oppressed, one that was making a real difference. And Compassion Australia, to me, is one such organisation. Global poverty tends to strip away the personal, but I'm here to tell you this morning that poverty is not faceless and it's not nameless. This morning you can change the world for one child. Compassion brings together one sponsor and one child, allowing that child to know that they are known and loved and protected. I believe God has asked me to speak up for those who are unable to speak for themselves, to speak up for the one oppressed by poverty and the one oppressed by the lack of opportunity. I believe that the ministry of compassion is used by God each and every day. So I'm asking you today to sponsor a child. Monthly sponsorship in Australia costs us very little. It's almost less than the cost of half a cup of coffee a day. Not that you can go to a cafe at the moment to get one. But this relatively small amount to us makes a real change in the life of a child living in poverty. It can help bring about change that will influence their whole life, but not only that, their eternity. Normally I would have a compassion table set up at the back of church and you could come to me and ask questions and sponsor a child, but we know these are not normal times. So if you would like to sponsor a child, you can click on, there is a link, that you can click on after the service. So if you're participating through Facebook, you will find a link that comes up in the comments section under today's video. If you're watching on YouTube, all you need to do is look for the link beneath the description of today's event. Or if you would like, you can simply text the word compassion to this phone number 0418 423 565 and then the link will be sent to you. Now, if you're watching this and you're not in Australia and you would, hello Canada, hello Finland, and you would still like to be involved, you'd like to sponsor a child, then please feel free to send a private message through either Facebook or through YouTube, however you do that. I'm not sure about that, and then someone will be in touch with you and provide you with some relevant details. So in closing, I want to thank you today for allowing me to share with you about the God who has a shepherd heart for his people, for you. A God who's gone out after the one. He's gone out after you. Jesus Christ came for you to seek and to save the lost. A God who sent his Son, a perfect sacrifice, a lamb without blemish, but also the good shepherd who laid down his life for his sheep. God bless you this morning. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. If you'd like to see more, hit the subscribe button. For more information about our church, head over to lagana.org.